Like notes through the hourglass, these are the songs of our lives.
Welcome to the latest episode of Songs of Our Lives. I am Brad Rose. I am a musician, a composer, a writer, the founder of Foxy Digitalis, and someone who thinks about sound and music probably far more than is healthy. Each week, I invite on a guest to talk about the basically songs that have left their mark. And we have fun and you get to know them and learn all about them and all that. So this week, my guest is Andrew Pekler, who is artist I've admired for a long time, and we've been run in similar circles. Like, you know, we have a lot of mutual friends and stuff, but this is actually the first time Andrew and I ever actually talked, and it was such a fun conversation, and I feel like I learned about a whole other side of him that I didn't quite know, which is really cool. So yeah, it was fun. And he has a new record out called For Lovers Only / Rain Suite, which it caught me off guard. I thought it was surprising because it's a guitar record ostensibly. And when I think of Andrew's stuff, that's not where kind of my head goes, but he points out when we were talking about it that he does, you know, he plays guitar in a band and he does do things with guitar. And I was like, oh, that's a good point. But it's a really special record. There's a real kind of vulnerability and intimacy to it that I keep going back to it. And I actually sent him a message a couple weeks ago, and I'd been doing some work out on the porch. I was putting some stuff together out there and painting some things, and it was pouring rain outside, and I was listening to this, which has a lot of really beautiful rain recordings on it. And it was just like all the rain, and it somehow just made it even better. So I highly recommend the record, and if you can listen to it while it is raining, I think you might appreciate it even more. I don't know. Anyway, so yeah, we recorded this, like I said, a month or so ago on Zoom. Had a great time. It was, you know, these are fun because he's in Berlin, so it'll be like morning here and night there, and I don't know, somehow that just adds an extra layer to it in my mind, and maybe that's just me. Anyway, I hope you all enjoy it. My guest today is a musician, a composer, and from my reading on his latest album, a real romantic. So everybody welcome Andrew Pekler. How's it going, Andrew?
Hi, Brad. I'm well, thank you. Thanks for having me on the show.
So tell me a little bit about SG, because it's a new moniker, and yes. And I could have a whole conversation with you about this because I've got a million different monikers for projects. Just because kind of, you know, it indicated in the sort of, I don't know, liner notes, not really liner notes, but the description of the album that it was part of why you did it, I guess, is to indicate that it's very different from maybe what people expect of your work.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I'm presuming too much, but maybe the few people that do know my work from the previous 10 years or so might have a certain, I don't know, expectation of a certain kind of sound, certain kind of palette of sounds, and maybe certain kind of aesthetic principles that might be expecting a continuation of that. And I was basically just interested in doing something else. And as you know, as a person of many monikers, a different pseudonym is always a very freeing and very kind of it's a new blank slate that it can be filled with all kinds of stuff without any prerequisites or expectations on one's own part. It seems very freeing once you decide that you're working on something that's okay. This is going to be called whatever it's going to be called, and it's different from it's can be very fruitful in that sense.
Yeah, no, I feel that for sure.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of, for me, it's just kind of fun. Like just
sure. And I haven't done anything under a different pseudonym for quite a while. So, but yeah, it was kind of my, I mean, this is completely not interesting, but it was kind of my pandemic project because being cooped up in the house with family and kids and stuff, working from home, I needed something at the at the end of the in the evenings or in the
Right.
time when I had time to work on music, something much more physical, tactile to work on. And so I reverted back to playing guitar and seeing what I could just come up with just the guitar and a couple of pedals. And that was refreshing. I mean, I hesitate to say therapeutic, but it felt good at the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'd kind of been out of, I mean, I would play music a little bit, but I hadn't really made a record in 5 or 6 years. And then when the pandemic hit, it was similar. I needed something to do to just maybe distract me or just come down from the day. And so it kind of got me all back into where I am now. And so, yeah, I can very much relate to that.
Yeah.
I really quick wanted to, so I'm an absolute sucker for like the sound of rain. It's always been one of my favorite sounds. I did an album a couple years ago where each track uses a rain recording of rain that I made at my house.
I missed that one. What's it called?
It's called Streams. It's under my Charlatan moniker. I can send it to you. I can send it to you after this. But why? I'm curious for you. Why rain?
Yeah, I think we're on the similar wavelength. It's always nice to hear. It's never not appropriate. Even if it's by itself as a kind of an accompanying layer to music, as a kind of a synthetic imitation of rain. I don't know, for some reason, it's probably, I mean, this is my speculation, it's probably like the very first kind of total soundscape that we become aware of, maybe as children. It's the first kind of environmental soundscape that totally envelops you, that you, I mean, depending on where you grow up, but
sure.
That you kind of become aware of, that you're then that it's kind of all encompassing, and then your whole sensorium is within this, exists only within the sound, and maybe that's why it's so. Maybe that's why I'm drawn to it.
Yeah,
some kind of deep innate memory, and it's also, I mean, it's people. I think that's not just me, because people put on the sound of it to go to sleep, and people find it very comforting, and yeah.
Was guitar, is that like your first instrument? Is that where? Okay.
Yeah.
So this was
classic.
like a return to.
Sure. Yeah. Classic. Indie, late '80s, early '90s upbringing with guitar and playing in bands and stuff. And yeah, I mean, I never like abandoned it completely, but focused maybe sometime. Periods less and less on it. But I mean, I do play in a band or in a trio with my friends Hanno Leichmann, Jan Jelinek, and this trio called Group Show, where I play guitar primarily.
Oh, well. Right.
It's been going on for years as well. We're not super active, but I mean, that's also been kind of a parallel track with guitar.
Well, I'm going to use that as a segue in here, since we're talking about early experiences with music, and we're gonna dig in here. And the first question, of course, is, what is the first song that you remember?
Yeah, it's not really even a song. It's more of a fragment of a song, or a fragment that appears in many songs. This kind of the classic boogie woogie left-hand bass line from played on the piano, which is
right.
We had a little upright piano in the apartment where I grew up, back when I was really little in the Soviet Union, and my mother could play, but she had some training, but she never did play, except she would be coaxed every once in a while to like play some Chopin. But my father, almost every time he walked by the piano, he would do this boom, 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 and that's it. And that's the only thing he could play on the piano.
That's amazing.
Just the left hand, and I
love that.
Yeah.
Was there music like growing up? Was music like around, like in the house a lot? Like
not so much. No, there was something on all the time because usually it was radio. My parents were big, kind of like in the Soviet Union when I was really little. It was shortwave radio was kind of one of the few possibilities to kind of receive news from outside, news and information out, and music also from outside the Soviet sphere. And the frequencies were jammed sometimes. So my father and my mother would always be like turning the dials, trying to dial in like that thing. So I have this sound of like shortwave radio to me is a very early memory for me. But and then when we immigrated to the States, my parents always had the radio on, but I think they were more interested in information and news and later on maybe like sports and traffic and stuff. More talk radio and like political discussion and stuff. I think I was the one who brought most of the music into the house.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Was that just from like going to school and stuff and just?
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe from the little bits that I did hear from the radio, I was enchanted right away by music. Like early '80s, just what was in the charts. It was very in my memory, very very kind of vivid and technicolor and very very bright and world.
Yeah.
And at the time when I was so little that I think this is probably a common thing. I imagined that I didn't understand about recordings. But I imagined that whenever Electric Avenue was playing, that Eddie Grant was like somewhere in the radio studio playing it.
Yes.
At that time. And I was fascinated by the fact that he does it so often, and it's always so good. Like every time, nails it.
I know. I used to think the same thing. It was so, the idea of recording when I think, eventually learned about that, was like, oh, it all makes sense now.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I love that. Well, so what's a song that will usually make you cry?
Ooh, cry.
Or at least feel that kind of, that emotion of where maybe it doesn't actually make you cry, but you feel that, welling of emotion.
I mean, yeah. So often these kinds of associations, these kinds of things work because by association with a certain moment or person or situation. Like it's maybe not necessarily. The song is just a conduit. It's not anything in the song necessarily, in and of itself.
For sure.
But I mean, I do have some very, tender memories of like teenage infatuation, unrequited love, maybe.
Yeah.
Soundtrack to a couple of Cocteau Twins songs, because the object of my infatuation was very into the Cocteau Twins, so I got really into them, and their music is quite bittersweet, and also very because of the way the vocals of Elizabeth Fraser's kind of made up language vocals are. Is very open to interpretation, so you hear what you want to hear in them. So yeah. So I classic would be the Pearly Dewdrops.
Yeah, I love God. I feel like that song is kind of perfect if such a thing exists. It's such those moments where her voice just kind of like it rises up and it's almost sort of feral and sharp, and it's, oh my God, that
it's just this side of losing control.
Yeah,
but within this very kind of beautifully constructed musical framing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
I love that song, and yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think like you said, a lot of these, and that's part of why I love doing this is because, like you said, they're conduits to other things. And I was telling somebody I did one a couple weeks ago with someone, and I feel like I came out of this and I have this totally clearer understanding of where your like music comes from and because like these songs and how they relate, and so
Yeah.
I think that's part of why I like doing this. Also, I get to just learn about cool music and talk about cool music. Well, kind of on the
another one, if I could just briefly
sure.
mention, it just occurs to me, another one that another song that I wrote down that brings me close to tears is the song by Joao Gilberto called Un Dieu, and that's also a song where I don't understand the lyrics with the Cocteau Twins song, because he sings it in Brazilian Portuguese,
right?
And that's also a very beautiful song that I could recommend everyone check out. It's from a later album from '73, I think, and you have to kind of it's recorded in an incredibly intimate way. It sounds like he's singing very this album, right?
Yeah, well, and I hadn't listened to it in a while, and so I put it on yesterday, and I immediately remembered, and it's kind of like he's singing it. You're in the room with him, and it's very.
Oh, you're like right next to his.
Yes.
Right, you're standing like 6 inches away from him, and he's whispering.
Yes, and
it feels so intimate.
It is, and I can't understand a word of it, but I find the vocals just so wonderful and sort of. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I love that pick too, because I don't know how familiar people are with his work, but most people will think of obviously like his bigger things he's well known for, and I think this is just this other side of it that is so wonderful. So
apparently he died not too long ago, just 2 or 3 years ago. And apparently he was semi destitute.
Oh wow.
There are some. I don't know exactly what went wrong, but he didn't end up maybe in the place where that he I think he probably deserved to have. So
Man,
contributed
a sadly familiar story.
Yeah, indeed.
Well, to kind of go the other direction, what's a song that'll generally put you in a better mood?
Always. When I was thinking about this question, I realized I was a lot of the potential songs that came up were Jamaican music, reggae, reggae, rocksteady, and dancehall stuff. For some reason, the combination of kind of like a sweet melody welded to like a super tough rhythm is always is a really winning combination for mood enhancement.
Oh my gosh, completely agree. Yes.
Murder She Wrote, classic dancehall.
Yes.
80s or 90s dancehall track is such an uplifting.
Oh my gosh, it's so good.
Yeah,
and
hypnotic as well.
Yeah, it is, and it's like this. It's relentless because it's just and I'm one of my notes. I was like, I'm a sucker for duos where the vocal their style and delivery is this total opposite, but it just is perfect together.
Yeah.
Oh man,
Chakademus is so. I think Chakademus is quite gruff, and Pliers is a very sweet, very sweet high tenor voice. They on the exact same rhythm. They did a version of Bam Bam. The exact same rhythm, but just the taking the vocals, the lyrics from Bam Bam, and that's the rare occasions where sometimes DJ. I have both of these 7 inches, and I just go back and forth for like 15 minutes.
That's amazing. Oh my gosh, that's
cutting back and forth. It's my little party trick.
Wow. Yeah. Gosh. I mean, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, and this is for a different question. But you had like Sister Nancy, Bam Bam is, amazing. Got the bass line on that. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Again, that's that super. I always want to call it like a tough a tough rhythm in the sense that it's very insistent, it's very grounded, it's very it's a very, I don't know what, and this kind of very floaty high. I'm trying to paint a picture of like these two realms,
right,
interacting with one another.
That's what it feels like.
There's very little in between them. It's kind of this just the chords and maybe a little bit of organ, but it's
it's a combination.
And the heavenly realm.
Yeah, it is. It's like it, and there's, I don't know. Yeah, I think that is the thing. It's a really good way of describing it. And thinking about that, it's like, yeah, this is why I'm so drawn to so much of this kind of music, because those two things happening in unison, but seemingly it's like, how? Yeah.
And also especially with Bam Bam, with the Sister Nancy version, that original recording, because she also sounds like she's like 14 or something. She sounds like
right.
She sounds very, I mean, this is projection on my part, but she sounds very, very innocent and very, it sounds almost voyeuristic. It sounds like you're almost like listening to like a teenager, like singing in the bedroom.
Yeah. That's a really good. So my daughter is 10 and has in the last year really gotten into music and singing. And so many times now, like I will walk past her room and we'll hear her, even like this morning, I thought that my wife was awake and talking to her, but it was her singing in her room at like 5:45 this morning, because we were, and it's very, and every time I walk by, it just makes me smile, because it's like this wonderful thing. And that's,
can I ask, is she a Swiftie?
Huge. Yeah. That's the thing that really, like, she had a kind of passing interest in music, and then in this last year, kind of discovered Taylor Swift. And so
this is like watching Beatlemania happen in real time, isn't it?
That's the only thing, obviously I didn't experience that, but from a distance and seeing this, I've never seen anything like it. We went to the concert movie thing last week, and it wasn't like jam packed, but everybody in there is just singing along to every song, and it was like I kind of got caught up, and it was just like this kind of beautiful thing of people just not having a care and just experiencing the joy of it. And it's so speaking of things larger than life, and anyway, what is objectively the best song of all time?
I mean, you know this, I know this, everybody knows this. It is of course Bo Diddley by Bo Diddley.
Well, I mean, if the song is your name, it and that's a great song. I've had this theory for a long time that it's the it's in and of itself for it kind of not only does it succeed perfectly at doing what it sets out to do, but it also is paradigmatic for many, many other things. It's like it's the perfect confluence of so many things that both point to its roots, to its past, and that points to the future. It's I think it's the moment in popular music where I mean, it was a big hit, and it's basically it's all rhythm. There's no harmony. There's no chord progression. It's one chord, and it's all rhythm. And this points the way to the future of music past that point. I mean, points the way to to what James Brown did, a decade later, to funk, to hip hop, to techno. Essentially, basically, it flattens out all the harmonic information and puts all the emphasis into what happens with the rhythm and all the nuances and the push and pull and all the harmonic elements that get added and taken away. That's the arrangement. It kind of basically throws out diatonic harmony and says it's just rhythm now. Wow.
So it's harmonically it's no longer horizontal, it's just vertical.
Yeah. I'd never thought of it like that, but that is damn.
It's
Yeah.
extremely futuristic. Also, and other aspects too, like, I mean, just the sound of it as well. I mean,
Right.
Bo Diddley essentially invented like the tremolo effect on the amp before Fender was building that into. So he was a bit of like an electronics tinkerer, right? He built his own amps and he built the tremolo effect, which kind of which adds these cross rhythms, polyrhythms to the rhythm that he's playing on the guitar, to the rhythm from the maracas and the drums. So it's rhythmically it's like super complex.
Right.
Actually, if you break it down into its individual elements, and it's also non-repeating because the tremolo is not synced in any way to what he's playing, what the rest of the band is playing. It's so, I mean, it like the next 50, 60, 70 years of music are in that song. And also, but it's also the beat itself. I mean, the Bo Diddley beat has its antecedents in like Afro-Caribbean rhythm, the clave rhythm, which is still still very much in the musical DNA of things that are happening now, and like reggaeton in dance hall, Brazilian music, and it's you can more or less trace all those roots those roots back to African origins. So it's like it's the past, it's the future, and it's also so fun and so joyous, and it's
right.
The vocal delivery is this amazing mixture of like sexual braggadocio and like nonsense, like children's rhymes.
Yeah.
It's like surrealist lyrics. I mean, obviously, it's also probably maybe not meant to be overanalyzed in this way, but it's just I never tire of that song.
Yeah,
and I think it's perfect.
Well, and it's one of those songs. It's like within a second or something, it's like what it is. Like when it starts, it's like, and yeah, wow, gosh, I'm never gonna look at this song in the same way, like in a good way. I mean, I always loved this song, but now, I mean, everything you're saying, it makes so much sense, and it's. I mean,
it also launched like a million imitators, and like British invasion R&B, all those bands, they all covered it. They all played songs with that rhythm. It's responsible for a lot of good and bad music.
Right, sure. Gosh, I mean, it's just like the perfect answer to this question too, because people don't know this, but there's like, I always put a note on here of like, what if an alien showed up and you had to show them the height of sonic achievement, what would it be? Yeah. It's like, this is it.
I mean, to me, from my taste, obviously,
sure.
it's only representative of like a fraction of music, and Western music with
of course,
American and African American music, but that's I guess that's pretty much mostly what I'm interested in. So that would be my caveat to the aliens.
Of course, yes, yeah. Go visit some other like continents and cultures so you could get their take too.
Yeah. They might have to ask somebody in India and elsewhere what they think.
For sure. Well, what's a song that you used to love, but now if you listen to it, you don't love it so much, you find it a bit cringeworthy?
I think I mean I'm hesitant to like bash anybody, and I'm also I'm not I kind of reject the idea of being embarrassed by one's own earlier missteps in taste or whatever. But I did as a kind of late high school teen, I absolutely adored Jane's Addiction. Me and my whole cohort of friends, they were like perfectly encapsulated our among other bands, but they perfectly encapsulated our kind of like our thing.
It was me and my friends, same thing. I can still play the bass line for 3 days. Like that was like if I pick up a bass, I'm going to play that.
And Mountain Song, of course. Yeah. That was very big. And I every few years I kind of like revisit that, and it's very, very hard for me to put myself back into that space of mental space of being able to appreciate it. It feels so. Yeah, like the sound is really, really grating. I think actually not well recorded. Maybe fine. Not that. I mean, I quite like things that are like shittily recorded, but it was like recorded in a particular like shitty hi-fi way.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, and I know exactly what you mean.
I can no longer get with the guitar. Pyrotechnics. Although at the time I was like, wow, what a great guitarist. And I realized that like Perry Farrell's whole like all these delay lines on the vocals is like is basically he took that like 1-to-1 from Gibby from the Butthole Surfers.
Right. That's true.
Yeah. He was doing all that, but like to much more interesting effect.
Right. Yeah.
For years.
For sure. I'll still happily listen to a lot of those old Butthole Surfers records.
Yeah, for sure. That's aged well, I feel.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to think about stuff from like that period of my life when I was like a teenager and what and I say this as a person because like West Coast punk rock was very formative for me, and I have a whole other podcast I do with a friend of mine about the band Rancid, and a lot of it is talking about these things of like, you know, fandom and things that were really formative and important to you when you were younger, and like what does that mean now, and especially in situations where maybe it's made by people who are not the best people, like how do you know. Anyway, so these are things I think about a lot, and I think like Jane's Addiction falls kind of. I mean, I don't know a whole lot about Perry Farrell, and
I don't know. It seems It also seems it has a slight flavor of like being very, very convinced of its own cleverness. Somehow.
Yeah. I think that's a really good way to describe it. There's this feeling of like, I'm so smart. Let me show you.
Yeah. Also, I'm so weird. Let me shock you.
Yes. Right.
But when you're 17, that totally works.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, when I was 17, it worked.
Yeah. No. For sure.
I went and saw them on my 17th birthday.
Man. I mean,
the only time I saw them.
Ultimate 17 way to celebrate your 17th birthday.
It's great.
That's a dream.
On acid.
Even better.
Yeah. With Pixies and Primus opening up in San Francisco.
Oh my gosh. Wow. That is a 90s like bill if I ever heard one.
Yeah. That was very, very 90s stuff. I can tell you the story of I can tell you the story of when I saw Nirvana open for Dinosaur Jr. another time.
Oh man, I saw the Smashing Pumpkins open for Guns N' Roses, so that was a weird one.
And I saw Guns N' Roses open for Aerosmith. That was my very first concert.
Wow, gosh,
like big concert.
That's like a whole interesting conversation. It's like bands that open for that. I mean, I don't know, the
bands you saw before they got big.
Yeah, and then that maybe probably went on to be bigger than the band they opened for.
Yeah. But let's.
Yeah, we'll save that for a different podcast. I don't know.
The 90s.
Well, what kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum, sort of, or maybe adjacent? What's a song that a lot of people or some group of people hate, don't like it, but you absolutely love it?
Yeah, as with the previous question, I find it a little bit difficult to kind of focus my thinking on this kind of like somewhat negative thoughts. I don't want to yuck anybody's yum, as they say, or yum anybody's yuck in this case. But as a kind of the on ramp to my, as previously mentioned, like kind of like a adoration of Jane's Addiction. I was a big like teenage Led Zeppelin freak. Me and my best friend, we just watched Song Remains the Same, I don't know, like dozens and dozens and dozens of times, and just obsessed over the records. And I can still, although I've heard all those songs way too many times, I still have a soft spot for Stairway to Heaven. I think it's. I think maybe even I appreciate even more now because there was this great from the 33 and a third RPM series of books. There was a great book by if I'm not mistaken, Eric Davis is the name of the author about Led Zeppelin 4. And a lot of it is about Stairway to Heaven and how it's like the perfect it's a perfect cipher in the sense that the lyrically it's very how should I put it? It makes no sense, but it feels like it makes sense.
Yeah.
You can make your own sense out of it as especially at that age as a kind of wondering, questioning, curious young person who's maybe even read some Tolkien or whatever, or some Hermann Hesse or some. You
can invent a whole story that will make sense.
It seems very profound without actually saying anything.
Yes,
necessarily.
That's really I like that.
I mean, in this 33 and a third book, it's much better analyzed, and of course, and the music supports that, and the music is of course absolutely undeniable,
right?
No matter what anyone says, and it's extremely tasteful, like the way it's put together. It's not excessive at all. Maybe as compared to like maybe many of the live versions that would go on for too long and the solos would be a little bit too sloppy and so on and so forth. Maybe build in extra parts, but like the studio version is just it's just perfection.
Yeah,
and as opposed to Jane's Addiction, I can totally beam myself back into my 14-year-old brain in that sense of wonder of like, oh, this is so profound. What does it mean?
I love it. Oh, I think that's a great answer. I really love that because I think for a lot of people, it's sort of this cliche or something now, but and whatever, everybody do you, but
what I have to say, recently I saw there's this kind of a genre of videos on YouTube of like, person X listens to song Y for the first time and they just,
and then it's like their reaction. Yeah.
And there's like a couple of these with like Stairway to Heaven. People have like never heard Stairway to Heaven before, and they're like, it's so fun, vicariously fun to watch them like totally be entranced and like just get into it and like get further into it and deeper into it than they thought was even possible. And then like afterwards, like, oh my god, this is the best thing I've ever.
Yeah. Oh, I've seen some of those. I haven't seen one for Stairway, but that's great. There's, I saw a video. It was a performance. It was like, I don't know, it was some like awards thing where they were like Led Zeppelin was being honored with some like lifetime achievement award or something. And so like all these other bands, I guess, were playing their songs. Only one I watched is Heart doing Stairway. So like Ann Wilson, like, oh my God, it was, and it's like showing like Robert Plant and like Jimmy Page, and they're just like in tears watching like Ann Wilson just crush the song, and Jason Bonham.
Robert Plant probably in tears because Ruthie Wilson can hit the notes that he can't.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like and Jason Bonham is playing drums like with them on it, and so it was. I don't know. It was. Yeah, I had it. Just sort of has added to my recent appreciation of the song, and it was like they played it. They didn't do like the like it went on too long. It was like crisp and Ann Wilson can just.
Not Nancy, yeah.
Right, yeah. Nancy's she was actually no, she wasn't playing the solos because she the rhythm guitarist, but I don't know who the guy is, but was playing the solos, but that's my fault. No, I think that's a great answer. I love it. Okay, so now let's see. We are changing gears, but as I mentioned, I feel like there's a certain. I don't know why I think this, and maybe I'm out of my mind, but to your new record, there's this like some of it has this. There's a romance to it. I don't know.
It's absolutely there. It's absolutely intentional for sure.
Good. Okay.
Keep picking up.
So, in that vein, what is the most romantic song?
There's lots of very romantic songs, of course, but one that always stands out as a encapsulation of maybe kind of romantic feeling is Naima, John Coltrane's Naima. I mean, it was written for his first wife before Alice, and it's just there's a like a chord change or resolution towards the end where it goes from I don't know, I'm not versed in like music theory, but it goes from like minor to major essentially. And this whole, and you realize kind of at that moment in the song, you realize that this whole thing, this kind of very moody piece, had been building up to this resolution that changes. It's like a beam of light enters the room all of a sudden, or the sun emerges from a cloud. And the great thing is it's not overdone. It's not played up. It's almost very matter of fact the way it kind of changes at the end. It's tonality, and that to me is is kind of the musical representation of this kind of tender romantic love. Not like heated first bloom of falling in love or passion, but this kind of romantic love for a partner that is maybe has withstood some difficulties and has lasted and weathered over the years. This kind of letting in of light in a maybe somewhat unexpected moment.
Yeah,
that to me feels very much like what romantic love feels like.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's really well. I think that's a really lovely description of that. Yeah, I love his playing on that song. I mean, I love Coltrane, and I love, the Blue Train was the first jazz record I ever heard. So I will always have, even though, in later years of my life, I got a lot more into his like Love Supreme and Beyond, and like Blue Train will always have a very soft spot in my heart. But his play, there's just, I think there's a real, and it makes sense considering what the song's about, or he, like I said, he wrote it for his first wife, and there's like a real intimacy to his playing. And I always thought it was interesting too, like I was listening to it again, and like the rhythm section feels very like sparse, and in the focus, understandable, I mean, I get it, but like even more so in a way is like honed in on what he's doing and like the notes he's playing. And I think that just kind of adds to when you think about what the song is for and all that.
It's very tender. It's very, very gentle.
Yeah. Which is, especially like, think like later Coltrane, and it's like tender and gentle. Like he was like, okay, now I'm going to rip the...
he's, he was somebody who felt the gamut of feelings, as we all are, but he was able to, express them.
Yeah. Well, what's a song that changed your perspective on an artist, whether for good or for bad?
Yeah. Maybe less changing my perspective on its individual artist, and kind of on a genre of music in general. Just a little kind of biographical anecdote. I grew up in the States, and then I went to Germany to go to university. And once I got here to Germany, they made new friends, and also people who were into music. But they had, we had a lot of things in common. We, bonded over, certain musical interests. But their upbringing included a lot more electronic music, and kind of early, techno and house and things, which I had barely any exposure to growing up in the States in the 80s and
right.
And so, and I didn't really get it. So I didn't really get techno, or how it worked, or how it was connected or related to kind of to American African American music in general, until and I remember the moment exactly. This one Robert Hood track called Museum from I think from the album Minimal Nation, possibly,
so, yeah.
or possibly Nighttime World, one of his earlier albums from like the mid '90s. And it totally clicked for me. I was like, okay, I understand. This is I understand how this is connected to jazz, to R&B, to funk, to kind of all the great music from that's made by Black people in America. I understand this is just the kind of by different arriving at similar endpoints, but just with different mechanisms. I mean, it's cliche now to say this, but I remember exactly the moment where it clicked. Like, okay, I get it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I totally get that. I don't remember which I remembered better, but because for a long time, like electronic music and techno and stuff I had a similar thing. I mean, I grew up in the States, and I didn't move to Germany, but like getting into it, like it may have been, I don't know if it was Robert Hood, it may have been like Terrence Dixon or so. There was something, but where I heard something and it was like, oh, okay. And then just kind of opened up a whole new world for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love Robert Hood. So that's, hey.
Yeah. He's brilliant. Have you seen him DJ?
Never have.
Yeah.
I can only imagine.
I've just seen him a couple of times. It's really, it's really intense. Really good. Played a lot of, last time I saw him was quite a while ago now, but he played a lot of like what sounded like gospel edits, like basically like,
oh wow,
little snatches and bits of from gospel music, like with like pounding 135 BPM.
Oh man,
drums, but like pretty good.
Yeah, stuff. That sounds awesome and intense. Okay. Well, what are some of your favorite lyrics, whether it's a song or part of a song?
Yeah, I have to say I'm not really a lyrics guy. I've never. I think maybe back to Led Zeppelin, my kind of seminal experience with like trying to like parse the profundity in the nonsense kind of
right.
I'll live me forever. I'm kind of more drawn to like nonsense lyrics. I have to say, like or lyrics that are not very oblique or indirect. If I pay attention to them at all, so like I always love like the lyrics of T-Rex.
Yeah,
early T-Rex, because it like both like Tyrannosaurus Rex, like the kind of acoustic acid folk stuff, and like early T-Rex, because it just seemed to be made out of like and whether intentional or not, it seemed he just like had just a bunch of phrases lying around and just put them together. And so that it kind of, it scanned and the meter was right, but they kind of added up to maybe something like a series of images rather than a story or
right
or a narrative. But I was always fascinated by that. It was just kind of like a lot of like also cliched phrases from like earlier like 50s and 40s like beatnik slang stuff, like just thrown together. But it kind of fit the music, and I quite like this idea of this like this like this hole right in the middle of the song where like you can project whatever you want. Yeah, Sid Barrett era Pink Floyd and like Sid Barrett solo stuff is also like noteworthy non-lyrics or lyrics that kind of are don't make sense in the conventions. But I've never been like interested in like Bob Dylan's lyrics or Bruce Springsteen lyrics or
Right.
Or even like, I don't know, Leonard Cohen is a fine poet, but in the context of his music, the vocals and the lyrics are kind of more of like more like a tone color for me rather than the meaning of the words.
Yeah, I think that resonates really with me, like with Leonard Cohen especially. It feels like it's just another sort of instrument in the, especially with his, like, I mean, his like voice of that like baritone and you know, really but yeah, I know a lot of people really love his lyrics. Yeah, I like the T. I too like sort of nonsensical lyrics that I think, and I always think it's interesting to see what meanings people derive from it. Like, cause it's, especially when there's something, it's like, well, there is no real right or wrong answer here. Cause it's just kind of, and so it can be like, and not in a like, oh, haha, you're so silly kind of way. Just, I think it's really fascinating to see how people, like different people will interpret the same thing. And, like I really enjoy the band Destroyer and Dan Behar, like total nonsensical lyrics. And, so I can relate to that.
Two other examples occur to me right now. They're quite different, but for these kind of lyrics where it's very, very hard to get a sense of what exactly is meant, but it conveys a lot of imagery and is very, very evocative. On the one hand, Butthole Surfers, who we mentioned a little while ago.
Yes.
And on the other hand, like Sam Prekop's lyrics, Sea and Cake.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very evocative, but from what I can tell, there's not a narrative or a story or any.
Right.
It's also very, very impressionistic.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good call. I like that. Ooh. Okay. This makes, now I want to go listen to Sea and Cake, which is never a bad thing. Yeah. Let's go with, what is a song, or what song have you or can you listen to the most?
I mean, I guess you could put Bo Diddley on an endless loop, and I don't know when I would get to that one. But since we already talked about that, I've probably listened to Strawberry Fields Forever more than any other song in my life. Also, kind of, nothing particularly original about that, but it's it's a song that opens up a whole world that you can go into, and I also never get tired of it.
Yeah, I just think just the phrase "Strawberry Fields Forever" is such a evocative, lovely sort of image. I don't know. When I was really young, and I think I've told part of this story before, but so like my mom was pretty religious, so she went to church every Sunday. My dad was a heathen and didn't go, and so I have an older sister too. But if one of us, if we were sick or something, we would stay home on Sunday mornings with my dad, and I didn't like going to church from a very young age because it was like I had to go and sit still and be quiet. And so I learned early on to kind of fake being sick. And so and anytime I'd stay home with my dad, we would just listen to his records. And it was usually Beatles and Beach Boys were the two things that I remember the most. And this song in particular, because it's like, as a 5-year-old or 6-year-old or whatever, it's just, there's just something about it, like you said, it's just this sort of lovely, wonderful song. I mean,
I can totally see that. You're pictured in my mind. That it's like a essentially very escapist song. Like,
yes,
like we can. There's another place, and we can go there now. And it kind of lists all in kind of these weird elliptical ways, lists all the things that are kind of they're bothering me here, but we can go there. There's like another, and that's like, and in that sense, it kind of illustrates like one of the main functions of music itself is that it can take you, it's transportative, it takes you elsewhere.
Yeah.
Also, kind of in the music and in the lyrics, there although kind of in a elliptic, not elliptical, oblique.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's. Yeah, I can't imagine ever getting tired of this song. But Bo Diddley's also, yeah. All right. Well, what is a cover song that's better than the original?
I mean, there's a bunch. This one is slightly obscure, but there's a soul, like a northern soul song called Magic Touch, which is a cover of Bobby Fuller 4, which was like a early mid-60s American kind of beat group, who their famous song was I Fought the Law, which was covered by the Clash.
Yeah.
But they had another song called Magic Touch, which is like a pretty good, pretty catchy, like American post-Beatles beat song. But this version by Melba Moore is just undeniable, incredibly uplifting, like 60s soul number with incredible drums, guitar, organ, and really great backup vocals. It's, yeah, everybody go out and listen to it. Magic Touch by Melba Moore.
It's unbelievable. So this is one of the ones that I hadn't heard, and it's so good. Oh my god! And then I went and listened to the original, and it was like, yeah, it's fine. But it, I always think about this, like sometimes, like with a cover song, and this is a great example. It's like, okay, yeah, this was originally by somebody else, but it's like, no, this is her song.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It elevates it to just another plane.
Yeah, I'm always really fascinated by that and love that when you hear, like, it's just this idea of taking a song that, again, it's a fine song. I'm not like bagging on it, but the sort of, to have the sort of vision or whatever to see, like, okay, I can see in this song is this, there's something else here that is transcendent, basically, and to take it and do that, I think that's like this really special skill to be able to do that. But the
interesting thing about Melba Moore's version of Magic Touch is it was recorded apparently in 67 or 68, but it didn't come out until like the mid 80s, when it's kind of normal. Yeah, it was released by like a when it's kind of UK Northern Soul scene was kind of quite active. There's a few labels that were like specialized in digging out kind of obscure, unknown, unreleased American soul recordings from the archives, and this is one of those labels found this and put it out, and it only came out in like 1986.
Yeah,
like it was 20 years later, and became like the song of that scene, the kind of the UK Northern Soul scene, and then and so she had like a bit of a revival.
That's incredible.
Within that particular, like a micro niche,
man. And I'm just like reading on here about like that song was like the big, like where the first, seems like the first thing she recorded or something.
Yeah, she went on. She had like a fairly successful recording career throughout the 70s and the 80s, kind of doing kind of good kind of sophisticated soul and R&B. But yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. No, this was what, like I said, I hadn't heard this. And again, this is like one of my favorite things about doing this show is learning about things that I never heard this. And now I'm going to listen to this song.
It's incredible. It's like the past is infinite somehow.
I know it is. I'm constantly amazed when I get these lists and I start going through like, it's like, how did this elude me for 44 years? And part of it is because there's just so much. I mean, it's impossible. but
still, you and I, and a lot of people, we like, we're people who are into music, and we listen to a lot of music, and we dig out music, and we try to find things that are new to us, and yet there's still always another rock to overturn.
I know, that's something I always say. Yeah, that's something I always say, like thinking of, because there's nowadays there's so much music coming out nowadays, and as you know, running a music website, it's daunting would be a kind way to put it. But I always tell people, like, especially if I'm having conversations with people, like, it's too much, there's too much. I'm like, yeah, but to me, I love the idea of knowing, like, I know that there are stuff out there that, I mean, I may never hear it, or I may hear it someday, that you know, it's there. And and you know, if I
didn't know Magic Touch, you know, like 2 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, what a world. Love it.
Yeah, you always have to tell yourself your favorite song. You don't know your favorite song yet. You haven't found
exactly it. Well, and that's what, and I always try to tell people too, like, who are coming on this show, like, think of it, it's like, this is this picture at this moment, you know, like, you know, all the caveats, nobody is, you know, except for maybe Bo Diddley, it's objectively the greatest.
There can be no question about that.
All right, well, we're coming down the home stretch here. We got 2 questions left. I often refer to these as the 2 big ones, but what is the song that means the most to you? And it's not necessarily because of the song itself, but like if it's association with an event or with someone or something that makes it so important.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned this before. It's I think it will have to be Sister Nancy, Bam Bam.
Yeah.
But I mean, the song is, you know, is great. It's a classic, not without, you know, it's super charming and stuff. But for me, it's very very meaningful because it's a song my partner and I we both loved so much. We kind of bonded over, and it was the first song we danced to at our wedding. Oh,
that's perfect. Yeah. What a great first song! Like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And there was also, like, no question, like, we were thinking about, okay, we have to, you know, we should figure out what the first few songs after the, you know, when the music begins, what they should be, and we'll be expected to, like, dance alone to the first song. What should it be? And we're like, bum bum. Yep.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Oh, I love it. I think someone else on a episode, it hasn't aired yet, but it was their song was like he and his partner's song, and it was, I'm a sucker for that kind of thing. So, because I am a huge romantic at heart.
I think you have to be.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's part of, I think it's part of the reason that I really like the new record so much. So
thank you.
Okay, well, last question. At this moment in time, here today in October, what is your favorite song, Andrew Pekler?
Yeah, I wrote down a few, and that's the caveat, probably, I guess, that everybody gives.
Yeah, usually, and I'll usually put people, like, nope, you have to pick one.
Yeah, I will say Jon Hassell's Dream Theory.
Yeah,
Jon Hassell's a big influence on me musically, and in terms of, like, thinking about music, his records are very, very, very special, very unique. And often, you know, maybe not very often, but, you know, have had some influence, and have some people who've taken up the gauntlet in kind of various more or less successful ways. But I think he was definitely an original.
Yeah.
An original also synthesis of various ideas that were kind of floating around, but he put them together in a very original, very, very convincing, very enthralling, captivating way.
I think he's been a huge influence for me. I remember I'd heard, I don't remember when I first heard his stuff, but it was a bit later. Like, I had heard I remember, like, listening to, it may have been this record or something for the first time, and thinking, oh my gosh, there are so many ideas in here that I've heard in other later things that I didn't realize, like, it all, like, it originated here. And, like, when I think about a lot of the music that I love, that's, like, being, you know, artists making stuff today, I hear so much of his influence and so much work, and it's remarkable.
Yeah, it's kind of gotten into the water.
Yeah.
Kind of in indirect, but mostly I think in indirect ways, and just kind of it's filtered through other things, through kind of like ambient techno, through kind of sampling techniques. He was kind of at the very forefront of that.
Yes.
Kind of outside of hip hop. Kind of ideas of synthesizing, kind of organizing principles from different of music from different parts of the world. So in other words, without not world music in the sense of like kind of conventional music with ornamentation from other parts of the world, but actually using kind of utilizing or kind of like the deeper structures of, I don't know, West African drumming or gamelan or stuff as a part of the composition, rather than a kind of ornamentation that just lies on top of a Western conventional composition.
Yeah,
like the true or Indian music, of course. And he was, and again back to Bo Diddley, he was Jon Hassell was somebody who's like harmonically
right,
very vertical in that sense.
Yes. Yeah, it all comes.
Yeah, he does a lot with one chord or one kind of set of intervals.
And no, for sure. It all comes back to Bo Diddley.
Yeah, it's a signpost.
It is. I'm gonna go.
It's like you're like going down the road and there's a sign there, and it's like one of those like Warner Brothers cartoons where there's like a sign that's pointing to like Albuquerque and New York. It's pointing to everything.
Yeah, the sign just says Bo Diddley, and it's it's perfect.
Jon Hassell this way, hip hop this way.
Love it. Well, we've come to the end. This was a lot of fun. I appreciate so much you taking the time and doing this.
Yeah, it was my pleasure. It was fun talking to you.
Yeah, and everybody listening should, of course, check out the new record, which is out now on, what label is it out on?
Fetiche is the name of the label.
Yeah. And there will be links in the show notes, of course, to everything. So, Andrew, thank you again, and
thank you, Brad.
Once again, thank you to Andrew Pekler for taking the time doing this. It was so much fun. Check out For Lovers Only /Rain Suite by SG, which is him, and it's wonderful. I think you'll love it. I also need to give a shout out to my friend and collaborator, Carl Antonowitz, who did the intro this week, and he gave me a bunch of intros. So the next couple weeks you will you'll hear them, and they're Carl's like a voice actor. Is one of his many trades, and he's great at it. So huge thanks to him. Check out his website and his Patreon. I'll put those in the show notes. I'll add those, and you can go check out Andrew's picks. As always, you know how this works. Maybe you haven't been here before. There's a link in the show notes to a YouTube playlist that has all his picks. If you really enjoyed this and you want a little bit more, consider joining the Foxy Digitalis Patreon, patreon.com/FoxyDigitalis. You get every episode a week early, and each episode has a special Patreon section that has some extra questions and conversation, and a kind of where we let our hair down a little bit. It's a little wild over there. So consider doing that. It's $5 a month, and the support, it goes a long way to keeping Foxy Digitalis and all these things going, and I just appreciate it so much. All right, that's it. Holler at me, all the places. You know where to find me. Until the next time, keep on listening to whatever the hell you want.